open view. Welcome up for answers, right? Good. Say yes.
Yes.
Good. Now, I'm also going to show you some very interesting videos that I hope you will find illuminating. I think that's the word. I just kept watching them for quite some time. It's the result of my mental status right now. And reliable text on the methodologies of artistic analysis, I encountered the book The Methodologies of Art, an introduction by Laurie Schneider Adams. Is anyone familiar with this book? Steve is. Okay. It's a very, it's a classic in the field of history of art methodologies for undergraduate students. First published in 1996, the book has since become a classic of its kind. Towards the beginning of the book, in a chapter ambitiously titled What is Art?, Adams begins a discussion of the artistic impulse. And in the attempt to answer such question in just over 10 pages, the author ends up defining art as what separates the human from the non-human. Animals build only in nature, she claims, and their buildings are determined by nature. These include birds' nests, beehives, anthills, and beaver dams. Mollusks, from the lowliest snail to the complex chambered nautilus, build their houses around their own bodies and carry them wherever they go. Spiders weave webs and caterpillars spin cocoons. But such constructions are genetically programmed by the species that make them and do not express individual and cultural ideas. This is aimed at undergraduate students. This passage, along with the rest of the author's argument, left me rather cold, for I found proclaiming the uniqueness of art as a human prerogative by comparison to the lack of abilities of animals rather hollow. The author supports the well-known case for human superiority over comparative animal inadequacy, and identifies art as the noble differentiating feature of the secular division between human and animal. It is a statement designed to stroke the reader's egos, suggesting that their interest is something noble, like art, and that furthers their own nobility by implication. But if anything, from my perspective, this passage presents art as something smaller than I knew it to be. Nevertheless, the fact that such argument would find a comfortable place at the beginning of a very popular book designed to introduce undergraduate students to a new subject and therefore to shape their initial knowledge of it troubled me. The animal doesn't do art, innuendo, gathers momentum through the chapter as we are informed that spiders, unlike humans, are not inspired by aesthetics or narrative ideas. They neither observe the environment, the author claims, nor make a conscious choice to create the abstract geometry of their webs. An artist, on the other hand, might observe a spider's web and transform it into a work of art. What Adams worryingly fails to recognize is that the term art entails a complex system of negotiations that goes well beyond the creation of an object. However, if we consider creativity as the universal originator of all art, then we find that animals are surely capable of displaying that, at times in ways that indeed border on the understanding of the creative in humans. One example among the many is provided by the male vogelkop bowerbird. Have you ever seen a vogelkop bowerbird? No, you're about to see one. Which employs the use of arches to support large barn-like structures that they adorn with flowers, leaves, and other found objects in order to attract females. Individuals of the species favor different color arrangements, and females seem to pay keen attention to the quality of the ornamentation before settling with one part.
Blue things.
The vogelkop bowerbird. He might lack the plumage, but he's got an extraordinary repertoire of song. And he's a wonderful mimic. Those are pigeon wing beats. That's a modest tiger parrot. And that, a sulphur-crested cockatoo. Even something, he's an avid collector with a very appreciative eye for colour. This male favours red and orange flowers. And he's very fond of fungus. Not everything he collects stays where it should. He puts these treasures on display within and around a construction that has taken him years to build. A giant bower woven around a central sapling, carpeted with moss. This grand design is no nest, it's the ultimate seduction parlour. But he's not alone on this hillside. He's got 6 rivals within earshot. This one prefers darker colours, decorating his bower with deer dung. And charcoal. Visual effect is of crucial importance. Clearly, he hadn't planned on all this sprouting fungus. He and his nearest rival live a stone's throw apart. Competition is intense. It's the dung ball bower that is the first to catch the female's attention. He withdraws while she inspects his workmanship. She's back again and seems impressed. But on closer inspection, she's less convinced. Perhaps it was that sprouting fungus.
That, as such, its comparison with the creation of a work of art, something that by definition serves no practical purpose, at least in its classical or more traditional inception, is structurally precarious. Allen's assertion that animals are genetically pre-programmed and therefore incapable of making art reflects the essence of the widespread relational modes we have established with them, modes driven by an overly determined need to separate ourselves from them at all costs, even if that entails arguing the absurd or denying evidence. Discounting the abilities of animals as programmed and unconscious is something ingrained in Western culture. To force specific human abilities onto animals in order to relentlessly produce skewed evidence of human superiority is a typical anthropocentric disease. Famously, in order to confirm animals' inferiority, Descartes argued that their behavior is instinctive, that they lack adaptability, and of course language. Similarly, Heidegger's idea that animals are poor in worlds saw them lacking the ability to conceive of an object as something more than a functional entity, while men are seen as world-forming, and therefore capable of creating art out of what the animal clumsily simply makes. The year 2004 was also the one in which Agamben's L'Aperto, L'Uomo e l'Animale, was translated into English and published as The Open, Man and Animal. The book addresses the issue of the human-animal divide and treats the subject as a defining argument in the contemporary philosophical debate. Agamben asks, asks, what is man if he is always the place, and at the same time the result of ceaseless divisions and seizures? Interestingly, it is halfway through the open that we find the question of the spider and its web surfacing once again. Agamben claims that the spider has no knowledge of the fly's size, but that it is able to weave its web in such way that the insect will be caught in it. He concludes that the world of the spider and that of the fly are uncommunicating and yet perfectly in tune. That we might say that the original score of the fly acts on that of the spider in such a way that the web the spider weaves can be described as fly-like. It's a quote from Agamben. To Agamben, the web expresses the coincidence of this reciprocal blindness, as the open is shaped by a functional rhizomatic unity between animal and animals and environments. The philosopher's understanding of spider, web and fly echoes Bataille's conceit of the animal as water in water, in which the animal is something indissolubly connected with everything else around it. And according to the nautical, is tangled in a web of captivations of which the animal has no awareness in opposition. It is through consciousness that humans conceive the world as separate. Agamben's vision of this relationship is problematic, for it echoes Heidegger's idea that the animal has no ability to grasp its own essence. And as Rongrolio rightly points out, to call the spider and fly relationship absolutely uncommunicating misses the shift in species over time and limits what we call communication. In reading Agamben, I have found myself asking which species of spider is the author referring to in his argument.
From a very special kind of multi-strand silk, which she backcombs to make fuzzy. She carefully attaches this to a framework of ordinary, unfuzzy filaments. The fuzzy silk doesn't have glue on it, but it will entangle hairy legs. And it's also extremely elastic, which is crucially important. It's finished. She reaches down with her forelegs to check how far away she is from the ground. Then she snips most of the framework threads and holds the fuzzy rectangle between her 4 front legs. She's ready. Her enormous eyes are so sensitive she can hunt in near darkness. A bush cricket would make a rich meal, but it's very powerful and it could put up a good fight. It must be parcelled up, and the fuzzy silk makes excellent wrapping, just as it does for Ecologies.
Okay, and let me just try, great, that's exactly what I want. And this is the bolus.
But one North American spider hunts with just a single filament. This may look like a bird dropping, but that's just a disguise to fool anything that might want to eat it. In fact, it's a spider, and one with an even more extraordinary hunting technique. It's a boas spider. Throughout the day, she remains motionless, but when evening comes, she prepares for action. She abandons her disguise and starts to move. Slowly, she makes her way down to the underside of the leaf. There she hangs from a horizontal thread. Next, she starts to spin a single strong line, pulling it out of her spinneret with her back legs. And at the end, there is a sticky globule. This is her bolas. It's all she needs. She climbs back up to her leaf and takes up her position on the horizontal thread with her weighted filament dangling from one of her front legs. A moth. She whirls her bolas and misses it. But she has ways of enticing the moth back. She can produce a pheromone, a chemical perfume that the moth finds irresistible. What is more, she can change it to suit the particular species of moth that happens to be around. The moth comes back. This time, she's got it. Now she starts to wrap it.
Does philosophy speak of when it utters the word animal? A literary one, or an animal made of flesh and bone, or even one made of chitin? And what consequences may be involved in not distinguishing between the two? That's one of my main questions. As discussed by Leotard in the postmodern condition, science does not represent the totality of knowledge, and the post-Enlightenment prominent science as scarred for itself in the understanding of natural phenomena may not suffice to understand the animal, as we know. Not so much because its evidential validity can be brought into question, but because its suitability as a comprehensive approach to the capturing of the complexities of nature is open to reconsideration. Agamben's argument aims, however, at more than understanding the animal alone. He effectively attempts to discuss how human essence is defined against that of the animal and how this affects human relationships. In Agamben's view, the human-animal dichotomy is created and perpetrated by the anthropological machine. The process of translating nature into culture, thus functioning in modern time through political, scientific, and ontological constructs on the one hand, looks for a connection between human and animal through scientific inquiry into evolution, and on the other, adopts the constructs of animality to render the human non-man, the Jew, quoting, that is, the non-man produced within the man, or the new mode, and the overcomatose person, that is, the animal separated within the human body itself, end quote. It appears clear following this line of thought that the revisioning of our relationship with animals does not simply involve understanding animal life beyond its biological or ethological functioning, but also entails risking human. The possibility of this risk was initiated by Bertrand Russell in 1913, when in his famous theory of knowledge, he radically proposed a doubting of our understanding of knowledge in the light of the fact that the animal practices inference. What is of paramount importance to the urgency of the animal question is that now, more than ever before, finding new perspectives from which to understand life may radically change who we are, where we are going, and who we are going there with. For global warming, environmental decay, and mass extinction are all clear indices of the wrongness of our approaches. Thank you.